Well, thank you very much. I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you, Nancy, and everybody for having me. When I was approached about this particular lecture, yeah, I said, great, there's a lot of great stuff that I can say about the Casellas. And as Frank Christian will tell you, there's a few things I can't say. So, so an Italian-American story in Augusta. We're, October 15th, 2025. We're in America. It's complicated. This is a multifaceted time to be alive, to say the least. But for just a second, indulge me and let's go back in time. Let's go back about 120 years or so to a simpler place in a simpler time. This is Viggiano, Italy. This is in the south of Italy. And we're walking through cobblestone streets of Viggiano. And what do we hear? We hear music. We hear violins, we hear mandolins, we hear guitars, we hear a lot of stringed instruments. It's a culturally vibrant, bustling place. Viggiano has been known for centuries for its connection with music, specifically street performers, street musicians. Now, Viggiano is located in the south of Italy. It's just southeast of Naples, in the really good part of a really good country. It's very close to the Amalfi Coast, which, as we know, is one of the most beautiful places on earth. And Viggiano is a comune. Everybody said comune. There you go. You got the little spice on it. Comune. There you go. Well done. You're all hired. A comune is akin to a township or a municipality here in the States. It is a comune just outside of Naples. So we're walking through the cobblestone streets. We're still 120 years ago. Everything's black and white and all grainy looking, right? And we come across this individual. He's carrying a violin with him. He's going to a performance. He himself is a musician, like many in the comune of Viggiano. His name is Giovanni Casella. And Giovanni tells us that he's on his way to a concert. He has been married for not too long, and he and his wife, Maria Rosa, have two sons, Luigi and Vincenzo. Now, Giovanni loves Viggiano. He loves being a musician, but unfortunately for the other residents of Viggiano, he's so good that he gets hired by a cruise ship. Comes on a transatlantic cruise, and it docks in Savannah, Georgia. Well, what happens? Someone falls ill. A member of the band falls ill. And there's a medical school just up the street. Well, just up the way from Savannah. It's the Medical College of Georgia. Well, this individual needs proper health care. So they take him up the road to Augusta, right here, right down the street at the old medical college. Well, Giovanni looks around and says, this isn't so bad. This could be a good opportunity for my family. Well, the ship takes off. The musician made it. He survived. He's okay. Ship goes back, docks in Naples. Giovanni makes the trek just southeast to the comune of Viggiano. And he explains to Maria Rosa, hey, honey, we're moving. It's a different time. So Giovanni and Maria Rosa and their two young boys, Luigi and Vincenzo, up and move. So they get on a ship in Naples. The ship they get on is the Saxonia. Now that's a British liner. It is part of the White Star Line. The White Star Line is, of course, and I should tell you that this is also the year 1912. This is November 1912. So a few months prior, there was a ship of the same line that unfortunately sank. That ship was known as the Titanic. So they made it, though. The Saxonia made it. Incidentally, the Saxonia, 2 years later, in 1914, when the Brits joined World War I, the Saxonia was transformed into a troop ship, and it carried Canadian troops over to Europe to fight in the war. A year later, it was docked in the River Thames, and it was used as an accommodative ship for German prisoners of war. After the war, it was sold to a Dutch company in 1925, and it was scrapped, unfortunately. Coming back to 1912, okay? So where do we go in 1912? We go to Ellis Island. And so this is Giovanni's manifest here. Here he is. And here's Maria Rosa, Casella Citaro, that Italian-Spanish thing of keeping your maiden name after your name. course, that got dropped at Ellis Island. And here are his kinder, Luigi, and Vincenzo. They had all of $2,000 with them. And of course, what happens at Ellis Island? Well, Luigi becomes Louis and Vincenzo becomes Vincent. So now we're Giovanni, Maria Rosa Casella, Louis, and Vincent. So they make their way down south. Some other Casellas made their way to Connecticut. But these, Giovanni had such an impression of the town of Augusta that they make their way down south. They set up shop. And what do? Well, you got to make money. It's being a musician can be interesting, even in the least interesting of times. So he had to get a day job. So what does he do? He opens up a shop. It's a sandwich shop. Sandwiches, soda fonts. The phone number was 1605, all 4 digits of it. And he made homemade spumoni ice cream. This is at 1542 Walton Way. You may know that as where the frame shop is located, right there on the corner of Walton Way and Chaffee Avenue. And the Casellas lived at 813 Chaffee Avenue, which was directly behind the shop. It's what you did at the time. Now, the Casellas were not the only one. This was not a novel idea. The Damianos and the Paneros came at the same time. Mr. Damiano owned a grocery store over on 9th Street. And the Paneros, I want to take an aside and talk about one particular Panero. His name was Angelo Panero. Angelo was born the same year as my grandfather, 1916, and he went to the Citadel, and one of his first jobs out of college was working at the Augusta National Golf Course. Well, Angelo, one day, he had some marigolds left over. So he took them around to the front of the clubhouse, and he planted them in the shape of the United States. And the bosses really enjoyed it at the time and said, we're going to go with this. So I think really, the most recognizable logo in sports and one of the more recognizable logos on earth is a pretty profound legacy. It really is for Angelo Panero. We're back to the Casellas though. Okay, so what do? You get a job, you got your store, your family grows, you have more children. Okay, here we've got Giovanni, Maria Rosa, and their kinder. We've got up top, we've got Vincent and Louis, and then we have Leonard and Joe, the 2 middle siblings. Singenzia, this young lady right here, and then right here in the middle, this little chubby guy, that's Victor Casella. So that's the youngest right there. So here's Clan Casella. Now, Victor is who I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking to in just a few. But I want to bring your attention to Vincent. Vincent was an avid bicycle rider. He was an avid cyclist, and he got really good at it. Vincent actually held the Georgia State Cycling Championship several times, and he actually signed a contract, as evidenced here by this old copy of the Herald. He signed a contract to cycle in Madison Square Garden for 5 years, which is a pretty big deal, I think, for a little Italian immigrant in Augusta, Georgia. Now, Vincent went on to start a restaurant of his own. The Casellas are real Italian people. They like food, right? Right. They like food, specifically food high in cholesterol. So Vincent opened a burger joint called Snappy's Hamburgers, and it was right. And I hear that it predates the Crystal Burger and was better than the Crystal Burger. So we'll get to that in just a bit. So Vincent was a cyclist. Now, he was a healthy fella. But the Casellas, in addition to their love of food, we also have another uncommon trait. Many of them died young. Maria Rosa, she actually made it all the way to 1946. So Mom lived a good life. She died at home, 813 Chaffee Avenue, and the funeral was at Sacred Heart, the Catholic church in the neighborhood at the time. And then we have Joe. Joe only made it to 23. He was one of the middle kinder. Joe moved up to Connecticut, and he took a job with a laundry company, and unfortunately, Joe was killed in a car wreck. That was in 1937. And then Louis died at the age of 47. We believe Louis died of some sort of a heart failure. But let's talk about Victor for a second. Let's talk about the pudgy little baby of the family, right? He's a cute little kid, isn't he? Look at him. Look at those cheeks. Victor wanted to do something a little bit different. So he wanted to be a doctor of optometry. So he went to Richmond Academy, the old junior college, Augusta College, and then he got on a train and he moved to Chicago, Illinois. Cold turkey, didn't know anybody up there, and joined, or enrolled, I should say, into the Northern Illinois College of Optometry, which is now the Illinois College of Optometry, or just ICO, still on the south side of Chicago. Al Capone actually had a hideout around the corner from where Victor lived, which I always thought was a bit of interesting colloquial knowledge. So here's Victor. He's all grown up, still got those cheeks. So when he earned his doctorate, the year was 1939. So what was about to happen? The world was about to change, right? We're entering into another great war, another world war. So, like many young men of his generation, he joined the service. He joined the military. And he examined eyes for several years with the military, including some of the eyes of the people who delivered the bomb, which I think is an interesting legacy for him, to say the least. So, after the war, he worked in Freedman's Jewelers. See, back then, most glasses were 10-karat gold fill. So the optometrist did the eye exam, and the jeweler made the glasses. I believe the modern day term is a kickback, is what you call that. So Victor's brother Leonard was a jeweler. Leonard started Casella Jewelers, and we're going to talk about him a little bit more in just a second. So he decides, after several years at Freedman's Jewelers, he wants to open up a private practice. And he goes cold turkey, opens it up on his own. And what do you do when you open your private practice? Well, Granddad would always say, Victor would always say, I think I just spoiled the ending. That's okay. We'll get over it. He'd always say, if you don't toot your own horn, ain't nobody going to toot it for you. So what do? You advertise. So he took out advertisements in the Chronicle, the Herald. In the television era, he took out advertisements during the Parade of Quartets. So, of course, one of the, if not the longest running show like ever. In fact, he even worked an advertisement into thanking his or congratulating his neighbors across the street for the world premiere of The Three Faces of Eve, based on the Hervey Cleckley patient. So this painting, this of course you'll recognize this is the Davis Cone. This is a print of the Davis Cone painting of the Imperial Theater. Davis Cone being known for his devout realism with scenery and with scapes. This picture holds specific interest for the Casella brothers. This is, of course, the corner of 8th and Broad, and the Casella brothers, they owned this corner. This was their stomping ground, and I want to draw your attention to several aspects of this painting. We can see Vincent Casella's place, Snappy's Hamburgers, was right in the Imperial Theater, right to the right of the lobby. I know a lot of you probably had a Snappy burger. Somebody will come into my office and they'll say, you could go downtown with a quarter and go to a movie and get a Snappy burger and get a Coca-Cola and still have change. That won't get you in the door now, right? And so right here in the middle, you can kind of make it out. It's a little washed out. This says Dr. Victor Casella, optometrist. That's in the first floor of the Southern Finance Building, which we know as the Lamar Building. So he was there. He started there in 1948, and he was there from 48 to 85. So he spent 37 years there. And then over here to the right, and I'll pan out again just to give you, here's Snappy in the Imperial. There's Victor's office right there. And then right over here, you can see, and I'll zoom in on the right here, you can see the word Casella written in white on a black background. You can see part of the word Casella. That was Casella Jewelers. That was Leonard Casella's jewelry shop, which his son Joe, my cousin, eventually took over when Leonard passed away. And then down here, we have Casella's Sandwiches. Casella Sandwiches and Soda Fountain. That was Uncle Louie's place. Louis Casella. That was on 8th Street, right around the corner. So when I say that the Casellas, 8th and Broad was our stomping ground, that was our stomping ground. And there's several things about that stomping ground that I can't share with you today. We'll do that in the after 5 p.m. lecture at some point. So Victor practiced optometry for decades and decades and decades. Well, his son, Tom, Victor had 2 children. He married Sarah Casella. Sarah grew up on Crawford Avenue. Her house is actually it is the parking lot, part of the parking lot of Platt's funeral home now. That's where she grew up. Right, the parking lot to the right of the funeral home. That's where Sarah grew up. So Victor and Sarah met and they married. They had 2 children, Mary Ann, the older sibling, and Thomas Victor Casella, Tom, the younger sibling. Tom decided that he wanted to be an optometrist as well. So Granddad opened Casella Eye Center in 1948. In 1978, when Tom moved back to town, he went into practice with Granddad. Well, it was getting cramped in that first floor of the Southern Finance building, and so there was a vacancy just to the north, just one address to the north at 767 Broad Street, and that was the old Rialto Theater. So Tom Casella purchased the Rialto Theater in 1985. At the time, it was the Augusta Federal Savings and Loan Association had closed down several years prior, so it was vacant, but it was a bank after it was the Rialto movie theater. And what's interesting, you can't see it on Google Earth anymore, but you used to be able to see this. They've since redone the photo, right? Google, the great invader of privacy. You could see where the roof was. There was a different part of the roof. There was this big circular area that was different. Well, in the 40s, or probably the 40s or 50s. Leanne, please don't correct me in public. Somebody dynamited, back then you kept money in the bank. The bank had cash in it. There was no crypto, there were no credit cards there. And so there were bags of money in the vault. You can come into the building now, we still have, the vault. We'll open it, show you. Well, some people dynamited through the roof, got into the vault, and took all the money out. Well, there was a patient of my father's, he's been passed away for some time, the patient, but he worked for the Augusta Chronicle. And he always contended that the parent bank paid the Chronicle to keep it hush-hush until they could get the money from the parent bank back into the bank. And so they never caught the individuals who did it. So I'm hoping, one of their offspring, came in and got an eye exam and bought some glasses at some point. And so Tom married Carol. Tom is Victor's youngest. He married Carol. Carol Casella. Carol Kovar Casella from Edgefield, South Carolina. Now, if you know anything about Edgefield, South Carolina, Edgefield people are tough. They are tough birds, and Carol Casella was a tough old bird. She really was for the entirety of her life. And Carol and Tom had 3 children. They had Ellie, the oldest, then they had Vic, and then they had Benjamin. And Benjamin was the youngest. And when Benjamin was a child, one of Benjamin's siblings would always say, "Well, you were a mistake anyway." And Benjamin would sit there and he'd think to himself, well, they have a healthy girl and a healthy boy, and now they have me. And he would ask his mother, he would say, "Mom, was I a mistake?" And Carol would look at Ben and she'd say, "I love all my children." So Ben did what any aspiring optometrist would do. He went to Georgia and got a degree in philosophy. The philosophy firms were not hiring in 2003. I can assure you of that. So he went to the UAB School of Optometry. So just like Victor started Casella Eye Center in 48, Tom came in 78. Guess who showed up in 2008? And Ben, myself, worked with my father, Tom. We worked in tandem 5 days a week until literally the day he died. And so I'm standing in front of you here. He's still got those cheeks, guys. Look at him. Victor Casella didn't have a wrinkle on him. He didn't have a wrinkle on him. He was in his 90s when he died, and he was still up to a year and a half or so before he passed away. He was still driving to Mass, driving to Bio. Shouldn't have been, but he was. And I think there's a lot to be said about the Mediterranean diet, olive oil, but he never got stressed. Never got stressed that I know of a day in his life, which I hear was to some of his family members' chagrin. So I'm here talking to you today with this hat on because Giovanni and Maria Rosa saw an opportunity. They saw this place for what it was, truly the land of opportunity. May it stay that way. Thank you so much. I myself play music. I think, you know, my mother was a really good piano player. She was a really good piano player, and I can still hear her playing now. She could read music fluently, and I want to say that I got a lot of it from mom. I do, um, but I recently, in the last decade or so, found out that I've got like a half uncle over in Charleston who makes his own guitars, and so maybe I got a little bit from Uncle Rob as well. I attempt to play music myself. I think you need to live your life melodically, and we need music as much as we need math and science, probably more. Oh wow, I really like antipasti. So when I met my bride Laura's my bride. We have two children. They're freshman and sophomore at Aquinas, where I went, and my siblings and my father went. Um, when I met Laura, the legend goes, my name is Benjamin Casella. Well, my granddad never made anything with red sauce. We didn't really. There wasn't the Sunday gravy. It was kind of a northern Italian. A lot of antipasti, hams, breads, olive oil with everything. We didn't really cook with red sauce. Um, so when I met Laura, when Laura's introducing me to her family, the legend goes that my name is Benjamin Casella. Her father said, "Oh wow, all right, red sauce every Sunday, Casella." And then her mother said, "Oh, Benjamin, she met a young Jewish boy. I love this." Neither one of those things turned out to be true, sadly. I do have a favorite. I really like antipasti. Really, as much olive oil and vinegar as you can cram into a slice of cucumber, that's my stuff. And I do enjoy cooking. And I think that one thing that the Italians really have down is that good food takes time. And I talk about granddad lived a nice long life. He didn't get stressed. Mediterranean diet. He never smoked. Routinely told my father that my father didn't drink enough. He said, "That's your problem, Tom. You don't drink enough." But cooking is a celebration, and eating is a celebration. People don't eat in their cars over there. They don't sit in the Publix parking lot and wolf down a Sausalito turkey on 5 grain. They just a meal is you sit down and you enjoy it. You chew your food. It's a celebration. And I think there's a lot to be said for that. Thank you. Yes, sir. We sadly do not. Chris, do you speak Italian? You know, okay, okay, well, that's okay, that's okay. My cousin Chris, everyone. Um, uh, so we do not speak Italian. Your father, Mr. Christian, spoke Italian with my grandfather's generation often, and I know that they enjoyed your father coming over the house and speaking Italian. And right there around Chafee Avenue, there was a lot of that was a big Italian Catholic community right there. Just sort of between there and Sacred Heart. I sadly do not speak Italian. I have not been to Vigiano. We have a family-friendly supper club. There's 4 families, 17 of us. Our kids all go to school together. And what happens during the family-friendly supper club? Well, the children go outside and play, and the parents crack another bottle of wine and sit around the table. And at our house one night we hosted, it turned into we're all going to Italy. All 17 of us are going to go to Italy. I'm sitting there with my wine. I'm like, and you're not paying for a thing, though. And so a year later, we went. The Mershaks. Brian Mershak lived in Italy, as did his wife Valerie, who has a PhD in Italian, which helps. So we did. We got as far south as Rome, but did not make it further south than that. But it is on my bucket list, and as soon as my Powerball ticket comes up, that's the first place we're going. I don't know. I have a son who really likes soccer. and is pretty good at it. I've already had the talk with him though. Casella's, we're good people, but we don't play sports on TV, you know. And our daughter really enjoys acting to the point where I think that may be her calling. So no balding middle-aged optometrist yet, but who knows? I knew I wanted to be in healthcare. For a very brief period of time, I wanted to do music professionally. That didn't fly, and for very good reason. But I knew that I wanted to be in healthcare, so when I was at Georgia, I took all my science courses during the summers, just so that if I wanted to apply to some sort of a professional school in the arena of healthcare, that I would have that. But I wanted to treat my senior religion teacher at Aquinas, a guy named Joe Levert, a very profound thinker. My senior religion course, you went through several of the modern philosophers, Descartes, Kant, facsimiles thereof, and you go through what their views on Catholicism were, because they were philosophers, but they were also theologians, they were scientists, you know, they were anatomists. And that really got me interested in the field of philosophy, and I wanted to use college as more of a thing in and of itself than as purely a means to the next level. And so I hope that answered your question. So I play strings and percussion. I'm better at percussion, and if I have enough wine, I'll sing. Thank you so much. Thank y'all. Thank you so much.